everyone. My name is Hadley for those of you who don't know me, and I'm here today to talk about my senior project and animal adoption. So I'm going to start out with a little personal story of mine. Over the summer, my brother went on the internet and he found just a single picture, and it completely changed my family and our lives and our dynamic. That picture was my new puppy Finn. We found him on a website, Do Good Dog Rescue. Basically what they do is they bring up puppies from the south and bring them up to New England for homes who are willing to adopt them because they have a surplus of animals there. Basically it just completely changed our life because prior to that my brother and I thought it would be impossible for us to get another dog. Before that we have a black lab named Junior. He's almost 14 now. And my mom always was like, oh, absolutely no more living things until you guys leave this house. But this one picture completely changed her perspective on all of that, and that's what fascinated me, that if my family could be persuaded to adopt a dog just by a single picture, imagine what it could do for other people. We always have been a family that likes to adopt animals because we really believe in giving them that second chance. They're the ones who really deserve the homes, and basically the purpose of every animal shelter is to find every animal their forever home, is what they call it. So basically my two dogs, Junior and Finn, they inspired me to do my senior project. I wanted to help improve the lives of shelter animals, such as places like the SPCA. At one time I actually was just thought I would be a vet when I graduate and go to school for that, but I've changed my mind a little bit on that. So for my senior project, I volunteered at the Pope Memorial SPCA over in Concord. It's a brand new facility. It's huge. They have dogs from cats and dogs. They have animals from cats and dogs all the way to ferrets. It's something I've always wanted to do. I've wanted to help out with animals. They're always been a great value to my life. So what I did is I went to the Hooksett Petco, and what they do there is the SPCA provides cats to the Hooksett Petco so that other people can adopt them. It's kind of like, almost like advertising for animals. More people get a look at them rather than just going to the shelter. They get more time, so the probability of them getting adopted is much greater. So what I did is I would go every Friday morning to the Hooksett Petco. It would be before the store opened, so at about 7:30 to 9, I'd do this for about 3 hours each week. And what I would do is I would clean the cubbies. As you can see right there on the left, that's an example of the SPCA's cubby for these cats. They have, I took all the stuff out of it in this picture, but they have beds, toys, water, food. Then there's a little sliding door and they walk in for the litter. So I would brush out the fur, I would clean the litter boxes out, I would pet the cats. I would really just try to improve their quality of life. And then, as you can see there on the right, that's an example of the adoption IDs that were used. Basically, it has their ID number. It basically tells this pet's background story. It has their name, it has some of their likes, dislikes, any warnings, such as like if they're more aggressive, but they try to pick the friendlier cats to put out to the public. And then in the middle there is a cat I worked with. She was my favorite. Her name was Lucy. She was such a sweetheart. And she eventually did get adopted, which was wonderful. Although this project was definitely very rewarding, I definitely had some struggles with that. The SPCA is a huge company. They have a lot on their plate, so there's a bit of a lack of communication there. It was very hard to get a hold of them. So to start my senior project, instead of emailing and calling, I just went down there in person, and that was like a big step for me. It was a little out of my comfort zone, but it worked out. And then another issue is sometimes I would go to the Hooksett Petco and there wouldn't be any cats there. They had all been adopted, which is great, but sometimes I just, drive there for no reason. Also, I needed to get more hours, so I started going twice a week instead of one. And then this was kind of a bummer, but I definitely realized that I'm pretty sure I'm allergic to cats after doing this, because every time I would go, the cat hair would bother my eyes, I would sneeze, I'd be itchy, which makes sense because my brother and dad are both allergic. I just wasn't aware of that. So for what this project did for myself was it really made me come out of my comfort zone. I had to become independent. I had to do all this stuff on my own. There was a lot of collaboration with other people who I didn't know, such as the volunteer coordinator at the SPCA, such as the employees at the Hooksett Petco. There was a lot of calling I did so that they knew when I was there so that they could let me in, getting supplies for them, all that kind of stuff. It definitely made me more independent, and then also I had to critically think about the issues that I was researching in surrounding adoption. So the research, I chose to research pet adoption and pet overpopulation, particularly in the US, because that is where it is most problematic. Just so you get a better idea of what I was researching, I'm going to read you my thesis, which is, it's more beneficial to adopt animals from a shelter rather than purchase them from a breeder because it helps to decrease the growing issue of pet overpopulation, it saves animals' lives from euthanasia, and it benefits humans. So a little bit on pet overpopulation. It's becoming a serious issue in America. For example, this quote, it says, "The pet population has doubled in the United States since the 1960s. The United States has twice as many dogs and cats per capita as the United Kingdom, 4 times as many as Germany, and 5 times as many dogs and 8 times as many cats as Japan." The main causes of this issue are pet breeders, people who are breeding pets and they're producing too many offspring that don't have designated homes yet before they're born. So a lot of these animals are being thrown to the streets or they're being put into animal shelters and there just isn't enough room. Another reason is sometimes unplanned pet pregnancies, such as people who don't spay or neuter their cats or dogs. They're producing animals that are not planned, and so when they come, there's nothing that they can do other than try and find a home, and then if that doesn't work out, then they relinquish them to animal shelters. And then the final problem is that people are not adopting animals. There are a lot of misconceptions, which I'll get to later in the presentation, but a lot of people think that going to a pet store is more beneficial when in reality adopting is the better solution. So the effect is basically these animals they're getting put in these animal shelters and they think that they're safe, but really they have a death sentence wavering over their head. And this is the sad reality for many shelter animals. For example, in 1996, of the approximately 8 million dogs and cats received by shelters, 6 million of them were euthanized. This is a very heartbreaking fact because these are perfectly good, perfectly innocent, and adoptable animals that do deserve a home, but they're simply being put to death because there's no room for them. And a lot of people lash out on the shelters for this, but it's not their fault. They do a lot of good, but there's only so much that they can do. There's only so much space that they have for these animals, but it's up to us to change that. It's especially problematic in the South. There's a lot more stray animals there than there are up here, so a lot of these programs volunteers will transport these puppies up to New England because there's more willing homes that would adopt. So I have another quote. It's pretty sad, but I walked in on the euthanasia tech euthanizing perfectly adoptable purebred dogs, and there were about 40 others already lying on the floor. I got this video from a documentary I watched, and this one really impacted me because these, like I said, these are innocent animals that are being put to death. But there is one solution, and we all have a say in that, and that is adoption. We have the power to control pet overpopulation, which is what people don't really realize. We have the power to do this. Some people don't realize, but shelters are a great resource because they have purebreds, they have mixed breeds, they have cats and dogs, they have all different shapes of sizes, colors, behaviors, anything you could want. They have much more variety at a pet shelter than at a pet store. Also, if you choose to adopt, you're giving an animal a second chance at a forever home, and you're not adding to the nation's pet overpopulation crisis. And then there are 4 reasons why people don't adopt, but they're just misconceptions. All of these statements that I'm about to read are completely false, but it's that people are afraid that they won't know what they're getting. That's false because pet shelters, such as I showed earlier, they have adoption ID tags, and they tell you about the pet's behavior, they tell you about their preferences, they tell you their breed, they tell you your size, all of that stuff. Another misconception is that people think that these pets are badly behaved. They think that's the reason that they're in the shelter, but that's false. These animals are there sometimes just because the owners can't take care of them any longer and they don't know what else to do, so they relinquish them to animal shelters. People are also afraid that they don't want to end up with a mutt. First of all, I don't think that there's anything wrong with mutts, but animal shelters do carry purebred dogs. It's whatever was relinquished to that animal shelter, so there's a good chance that there is a purebred dog there. And the final misconception is that people are worried about the adoption fee. Adoption fees are fairly low, but all the money that you pay in that adoption fee goes back to the shelter. It goes to the food, it goes to the shelter, the protection that these animals are receiving. So some people are like, oh, well, why am I going to adopt a dog when I can get one for free from someone else? Well, you can do that, but just know that the money is going to good use. And then finally, I'm going to end on the things that you can do as a person to help combat pet overpopulation. First of all, like as I said, you can adopt a dog rather than breeding. If you just spay and neuter your animals, it completely takes away the chance of an unplanned pet pregnancy. You can volunteer at these animal shelters because all these shelters are run from volunteers. They are nonprofit organizations and they always can use help. And then finally, the most important piece that you could possibly do is educate others on why adoption is a positive thing for the world, and you can educate them on the misconceptions and how they're false. But I know this was a lot of deep information to take in, but my project did have a happy ending. Every single cat that I worked with the SPCA got adopted, which is fantastic, and they found loving homes and loving owners. And then there were even weeks where there were no cats there because all the cats got adopted, which I think was great. And then it felt really rewarding for me to know that I was improving the quality of life in these animals. And then finally, I'd just like to say thank you. That's my dog Finn on the left and my dog Junior on the right. And I'd like to thank Miss Aubin for being a great teacher and for really keeping me on track, and Mrs. Bragg for being a wonderful mentor and having a lot of support. I'd like to thank David Leach, who is the volunteer coordinator at the SPCA. He got me started with this project. And then I'd finally like to thank Kelly. She's an employee at the Hooks at Petco, and she was always there every morning to let me in, give me my supplies, and they just made the process a lot easier. So thank you. Any questions?
Hadley, I don't know if you know this through your research, but the statistics you talked about the United States versus the other countries.
Yes.
Is there a reason why the United States is so far?
I don't know if there's any particular reason why it's us versus others, but I just know that it's because, especially down south, they're just people who are breeding dogs and they don't plan on any designated homes for them before they're born. So these dogs are being left to the streets, they're being left to animal shelters, and we just don't have enough resources or space to compensate for all of that. Anything else? All right, thank you.